Before we dive in, if you love epic tales of war, strategy, hit that subscribe and like button, turn on notifications, and join our growing legion of warriors. Now, let's begin. The first time Captain Ryan Carter saw her, he thought she was a ghost. She stood at the far end of the ruined outpost, a lone figure silhouetted against the dying embers of a burning world. The sky above was a twisted vortex of red and violet, remnants of a battle fought and lost. Her silver skin shimmered in the eerie light, and her deep violet eyes locked onto his with an intensity that sent a chill down his spine. She wasn't human, but she was close enough to unsettle him. Ryan was part of a search and rescue team sent to recover survivors after the disastrous war between the human colonies and the mysterious, now extinct Zalari species. The Zalari were wiped out, every last one of them, or so humanity believed. But here she was, a Zalari woman, the last of her kind. She took a step forward, her movements graceful yet hesitant, as if she hadn't seen another living soul in years. Her lips parted, and when she spoke, her voice was soft but urgent. "You are human." Her accent was strange, almost musical, as if each word carried hidden weight. Ryan tightened his grip on his plasma rifle. "Yeah, and you are supposed to be extinct." She didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped closer, eyes scanning him as if memorizing every feature. "Then, you must be the one." The one for what? Her gaze locked onto his with an intensity that made his breath hitch. "The one who will help me survive." Something about the way she said it made his stomach twist. He had encountered desperate refugees before, but this was different. There was something raw in her voice. Something ancient. Something he didn't understand. The radio crackled in his earpiece. "Carter, report. Any survivors?" He hesitated. He had a choice to make. Humanity believed the Zalari were gone, their existence a painful memory of a war that cost millions of lives. But if he reported this woman, this last surviving Zalari, would she even live long enough to tell her story? Ryan exhaled sharply. "Negative," he lied. "No survivors here." Her eyes widened slightly, as if she understood the risk he had just taken. "What's your name?" he asked. She hesitated. "I am Alaris." He nodded, lowering his weapon. "All right, Alaris, let's get out of here." As they turned toward the waiting dropship, Ryan had no idea that saving her would change the fate of humanity itself. Carter knew he was making a mistake. Harboring an alien, especially a Zalari, was treason. The war had wiped them out, and humanity had no interest in finding out if any survived. The official stance was simple. The Zalari were gone, and if any remained, they wouldn't be for long. Yet, here he was, sitting across from the last living Zalari, hiding her aboard his ship. Alaris sat in the co-pilot's chair, her violet eyes scanning the ship's controls with quiet fascination. She hadn't spoken much since they left the ruined planet. Ryan had expected more panic, maybe fear, but she was strangely calm, almost determined. "All right," Ryan finally said, breaking the silence. "Let's get something straight. I just risked my career, my freedom, hell, maybe my life, to get you off that planet. The least you can do is tell me why you were there, and why you think I'm the one to help you." Alaris turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "You assume you saved me, human, but the truth is, I was waiting for you." Ryan stiffened. "Waiting for me? I don't even know who you are." She tilted her head, as if trying to decide how much to tell him. "Not you specifically, but I knew a human would come. You were our only hope after—" She hesitated, her gaze flickering downward. "After my people fell." Ryan crossed his arms. "All right, start from the beginning. What really happened to the Zalari?" She took a slow breath, as if gathering the strength to relive something painful. "The war between our species was never meant to happen. We never wanted to fight humans." Ryan narrowed his eyes. "That's not how I remember it. You ambushed our colonies. We fought back." Alaris shook her head. "That was not our doing. We were deceived. Trapped in a war neither of us should have fought." Ryan scoffed. "Deceived by who?" Alaris hesitated. The Architects. Ryan frowned. He had never heard that name before. Who the hell are the Architects? She met his gaze, and for the first time, he saw something that unnerved him. Not fear, not sadness, but certainty. They are the ones who truly ended my people, she said softly. And if you don't listen to me, they will end yours too. A chill ran down Ryan's spine. He had expected Alaris to beg for her life, to plead for safety. Instead, she was warning him. Why should I believe you? He asked. Alaris reached into the folds of the tattered cloak she wore and pulled out a small metallic device. It was shaped like an orb, covered in shifting blue glyphs. This, she said, placing it on the console between them, is the last record of my people, and proof that everything you think you know about the war is a lie. Ryan stared at the device, his gut telling him he was about to step into something far bigger than himself. All right, he muttered, reaching for the orb. Let's see what you've got. Ryan held the orb in his hands, its surface smooth and unnervingly warm, as if alive. The shifting glyphs pulsed in a slow rhythm, responding to his touch. He had seen plenty of alien tech before, but nothing like this. Alaris watched him carefully. It will show you the truth. But be warned, human. Once you see it, there is no turning back, Ryan scoffed. Yeah, well, I already committed treason by bringing you aboard. Let's see if this was worth it. He pressed his thumb against the orb, and instantly, his vision blurred. The ship around him dissolved into darkness. Then, the memories came. Flashes of a world unlike any he had ever seen. Towering crystalline spires piercing a sky of endless silver. A race of beings moving with effortless grace, their skin shimmering in hues of blue and violet. The Zalari homeworld. Beautiful, ancient, thriving. And then, the change. The sky darkened. The air shimmered with unnatural energy. Black monoliths descended from the void, silent and motionless at first. Then, chaos. The monoliths came alive. They unleashed waves of crackling energy, warping the air, bending reality itself. The Zalari fought, but their weapons were useless. The monoliths didn't attack with brute force. They rewrote existence itself. Entire cities collapsed into nothingness. Time itself fractured. And then, Ryan saw them. The Architects. They weren't like any species he had ever encountered. Not machines, not organic. They were something in between, shifting and twisting like living shadows wrapped in cold, metallic exoskeletons. Their faces were featureless, their eyes burning with void-like intensity. They did not conquer, they unmade. The Zalari fled, but there was nowhere to run. In mere days, their world was reduced to scattered ruins. The Architects did not take prisoners. They did not leave survivors. They erased every trace of Zalari. Civilization, except one. The vision faded, and Ryan gasped as reality snapped back into focus. His hands trembled, and sweat dripped down his temple. He was back on his ship, Alaris watching him closely. He sucked in a breath. What the hell was that? The fall of my people, Alaris said, her voice laced with sorrow. The Architects destroyed us, but they did not stop with us. Ryan's pulse hammered in his ears. He had seen battlefields, seen the aftermath of war. But this was something else entirely. You're telling me these Architects were behind everything? He asked. Even our war? Alaris nodded. They manipulated our leaders, pushed us into conflict with humanity. They needed us to destroy each other, so we would be weak when they came for us. Ryan exhaled sharply, running a hand through his hair. If this was true, it changed everything. The war, the losses, the hatred between their species. It had all been engineered. He shook his head. Why would they do this? What do they want? Alaris hesitated before answering. To erase us. To erase everything that is not them. Ryan clenched his jaw. And you think they're coming for humanity next? They are already here, Alaris whispered. And we have very little time. A cold dread settled in Ryan's stomach. He had smuggled her aboard, thinking he was rescuing a fugitive. Instead, he had just uncovered a threat that could wipe out the entire human race. And now, he was the only one who knew. Ryan paced the narrow confines of his ship's cockpit, his mind racing. If what Alaris said was true, if these architects had been manipulating both humans and Zalari from the shadows, then humanity wasn't just at risk. They were already under attack, and they didn't even know it. The problem? No one would believe him. Earth's high command barely tolerated rogue captains like him. They certainly weren't going to listen to a man who claimed an extinct alien species had been wiped out by some unknown force, especially when his only source was the last surviving Zalari. And then there was the bigger issue. If the architects had already infiltrated human space, how deep did their influence run? Ryan turned to Alaris, who sat cross-legged on the co-pilot's seat, watching him with those unsettling violet eyes. If these architects are already here, then why haven't they just erased us like they did to your people? Alaris's expression darkened. Because humanity is different. You are chaotic, unpredictable. You wage war, but you do not seek domination. The architects have always worked in the shadows, manipulating species into self-destruction. But humanity, you are harder to control. Ryan frowned. Harder to control how? She hesitated. You resist. Ryan almost laughed. Damn right we do. Alaris leaned forward, her voice urgent. That is why I need you. If humanity unites, if you know what's coming, you might stand a chance. Ryan folded his arms. That's a big if. Even if I wanted to warn people, I don't have any proof that would convince them. He gestured to the glowing orb still on the console. You think High Command is going to look at an alien memory ball and take it seriously? Alaris exhaled. No. That is why we must find something they will believe. Ryan arched an eyebrow. Like what? Alaris hesitated, as if weighing how much she should say. Finally, she met his gaze. A survivor. Ryan froze. You told me you were the last of your kind. She nodded. The last Zalari, yes, but not the last witness. Ryan's gut twisted. Who? Alaris's expression was unreadable. A human. Ryan's pulse quickened. You're telling me that there's a human out there who knows about the architects? Yes. Ryan didn't know what was worse. The fact that there was already a human who had encountered these things, or the fact that no one else knew about it. He grabbed the controls of his ship, inputting a course change. All right, where are we going? Alaris closed her eyes for a moment, as if recalling something distant. Then, she opened them. The colony world of Aegis 9. Ryan felt a pit form in his stomach. Aegis 9 was a classified research outpost, rumored to be involved in top-secret military projects. If someone there had encountered the architects, it wasn't just some backwater conspiracy. It meant the government already knew, and they were hiding it. Ryan tightened his grip on the throttle. Then let's get moving. Because if the architects are already here, we're running out of time. Aegis 9 was one of those places people only heard about in whispers. A remote colony, shrouded in secrecy, nestled on the edge of the galaxy where humans had no business being. Ryan had always assumed it was just another research outpost, full of scientists with questionable ethics pushing the boundaries of what was acceptable in the name of progress. But now, as he approached the planet's orbit, the weight of what he was about to uncover bore down on him. The space around Aegis 9 was eerily quiet. Too quiet. The long-range scanners on Ryan's ship flickered, showing barely any activity. The atmosphere of the planet below was shrouded in a thick layer of clouds, making it hard to even make out the shape of the surface. This was no ordinary outpost. Something felt wrong. As they neared the surface, Alaris's expression darkened. They will be watching. Ryan shot her a questioning look. Who? The architects, she replied, her voice low. They do not let their prey escape. They will know we are coming. Ryan clenched his jaw. He had thought the same thing. He had to act fast, before the architects could do whatever it was they planned to do next. He pulled up the coordinates for Aegis 9's central research facility. He'd have to land close to the facility's hidden access points. As he touched, down on the planet's surface, a heavy silence enveloped the ship. The ground beneath them was barren, marked by what looked like long-abandoned construction sites and broken vehicles. It was as if the entire world had been frozen in time. "Stay close," Ryan said, checking his weapons as he prepared to exit the ship. "We don't know what we'll find." Alaris nodded but didn't say a word. She was distant now, her mind elsewhere, perhaps replaying a memory or feeling the weight of a past she could never escape. Ryan couldn't help but notice the exhaustion in her eyes, as though she had already lived 1,000 lifetimes. The ground was still and barren as they walked towards the facility. There was a sense of unease, a pressure in the air that Ryan couldn't explain. It wasn't just the feeling of being watched. It was as if the very land around them had been marked by the architects. They reached the hidden entrance to the research base, an old maintenance shaft that led beneath the facility. Ryan motioned for Alaris to lead, and she stepped forward without hesitation. She had been here before. She knew what they were walking into. As they descended into the darkened shaft, the silence grew oppressive, and the sound of their boots on metal echoed like the ticking of a clock, counting down to some inevitable conclusion. Finally, they reached a chamber deep within the complex. The walls were lined with strange alien technology, unlike anything Ryan had ever seen. It wasn't human. It wasn't Solari. It was something else. The air in the room felt charged, alive, almost sentient. The walls were covered with glyphs, similar to the ones on the orb Alaris had shown him, but these were far more intricate, pulsating with a strange energy. "What is this?" Ryan whispered, his voice barely audible. Alaris stepped closer to one of the walls, her fingers tracing the glyphs. "The architect's work," she said softly. "They have been here longer than we realized. These are not just weapons. They are conduits, ways for them to manipulate reality itself." Ryan's breath hitched. The walls weren't just made of stone or metal. They were alive, shifting and changing, like the architects themselves. "What do they want with this place?" Ryan asked, his mind racing. Alaris paused, her hand hovering over the glyphs. "To control, to erase. The humans here must have discovered something they weren't supposed to." She turned to him, eyes wide with urgency. "We have to find the survivor. He's the key." Ryan didn't need to ask who the survivor was. Alaris was talking about the man who had crossed paths with the architects, someone who knew exactly how to fight them, someone who held the knowledge to stop their plan. The only problem? No one knew where he was. The deeper they ventured into the facility, the more Ryan felt like a stranger in a place that had never been meant for human eyes. The air itself seemed thick with the weight of secrets, and the walls around them pulsed with an unnatural energy. It was as though the very structure of the building had been reshaped by the architects, reprogrammed into something unrecognizable. Ryan's heart raced. Every corner they turned, every door they passed, felt like it could be the one leading to the answers he so desperately needed. But the deeper they went, the more questions arose. "Where are they keeping him?" Ryan asked, his voice echoing in the oppressive silence. Alaris's eyes flickered with uncertainty. She was just as lost as he was. "I don't know. The survivors were brought here, taken into their custody. But something happened. The others..." She trailed off, her face hardening. "They were made into something else." Ryan looked at her, alarm spreading through his chest. "Made into what?" Her lips pressed together, and she hesitated before answering. "They were reconditioned, brainwashed, altered, turned into pawns of the architects. No one leaves this place unless they are..." She paused, shuddering slightly. "Changed." Ryan clenched his fists. This place wasn't just a research facility. It was a prison, a breeding ground for something far more sinister. The thought of a human being warped by the architect's influence was terrifying, but it also explained why no one had ever believed the warnings. The architects were not just alien invaders, they were manipulative masters of control. "What do we do now?" Ryan asked, trying to suppress his rising panic. "We find him," Alaris said firmly. "There is a chamber below this one. It was used to house the most dangerous subjects." Ryan didn't hesitate. His heart was pounding, but he knew they couldn't waste any more time. He followed Alaris as she led him to a nearby lift. It descended deep into the heart of the facility, past layers of security, into a section that had long been abandoned, or so it seemed. The lift doors opened with a soft hiss, revealing a darkened hallway. The walls were covered in scorch marks, as though something violent had occurred here. "This is it," Alaris whispered, her voice trembling. Ryan stepped forward, feeling the weight of history pressing down on him. "This doesn't feel like a place that's been abandoned," he muttered, scanning the hall. There was something eerie about the stillness, the way the place seemed almost preserved. They walked cautiously, every footstep louder than the last in the stillness. At the end of the hall, they came to a massive door, its surface marked with strange symbols, ones that Ryan had seen before, on the orb, in the glyphs across the facility. "What is this place?" Ryan asked, his eyes narrowed. "A holding chamber," Alaris replied, her voice heavy. "It was where they kept the survivors, the ones who knew too much." Ryan didn't like the sound of that, but there was no turning back now. He had to know the truth, no matter what it meant for humanity's future. He reached forward and activated the door's security system. A low hum vibrated through the air as the door slid open, revealing a darkened room beyond. Inside, a single figure stood, hunched over, silhouetted against the dim light that flickered from an overhead panel. The figure was human. At least, that's what it appeared to be. "Alaris, who is that?" Ryan asked, his voice a mix of awe and dread. The Zalari woman stepped forward, her eyes narrowing as she studied the figure. Her expression faltered. "This is him. The one who survived." The figure slowly turned, revealing a gaunt, hollow face. His eyes were dark, sunken in his skull. His body was thin, almost emaciated, but there was a sharpness in his gaze that made Ryan's blood run cold. "Alaris," the man rasped, his voice hoarse and cracked. "I never thought I'd see another of your kind, or a human, again." Ryan tensed. He didn't know what to expect, but the sheer intensity of the man's gaze unsettled him. There was something wrong with him, something that went deeper than just physical disrepair. It was as if his very mind had been twisted, fractured. "I am Captain Ryan of the USS Resolute," Ryan said, stepping forward cautiously. "You're the one who knows about the architects, aren't you?" The man's lips curled into a dry, hollow smile. "I know more than you could ever imagine." Ryan felt a chill run down his spine. This man wasn't just a survivor. He had seen and endured the architect's work, and he had come out of it changed. The survivor's voice dropped to a whisper. "You've been warned, Captain. Humanity has no idea what they're up against, but you're about to find out." The man, who had once been a part of humanity's military, now appeared more like a broken vessel, his body thin and frail, his mind seemingly shattered by the horrors he'd witnessed. But when he spoke, his words carried a chilling weight. "I'm the last one," he said, his voice low and trembling. "The last human to survive an encounter with the architects. And they don't just kill you. They warp your very soul." Ryan didn't know whether he should pity the man or fear him. His eyes, hollow and dark, seemed to hold a secret, a knowledge so devastating that it threatened to tear apart everything Ryan thought he knew about the galaxy. Alaris, who had been silent this entire time, stepped closer. "You were one of the survivors of the architect's first wave, the ones who escaped their grasp. But you were changed by them, weren't you?" The man nodded slowly, as though the memories were both a burden and a curse. "I was a part of a team sent to investigate a strange anomaly near the Vorton expanse. We found a ship. It looked human, but it wasn't. It was the first time we encountered the architects. And from that moment, everything changed." Ryan swallowed hard. "What happened?" The survivor's eyes flashed with a mix of rage and sorrow. "We boarded the ship. We thought it was just an abandoned wreck. But it wasn't abandoned. We were caught in a trap. The architects, these creatures, they don't just invade planets. They invade minds. They twist you, manipulate you. They break you down, until you're nothing but a puppet." Ryan's blood ran cold. The man's words were like a premonition, a warning. The architects didn't just invade worlds, they invaded the very essence of their victims, warping them into something unrecognizable. Alaris's voice broke through the tension. The survivor, the one you call the witness, he is the key to everything. He holds the knowledge that can stop them, but she faltered. But the architects already know him. They've marked him, and he has seen their true form. The man's eyes darted to Alaris. It's too late, he rasped. You don't understand. You can't stop them. They have already infiltrated your minds, your governments, the military. They are everywhere, and they are controlling everything. Ryan stepped forward, his voice sharp. What are you talking about? How can they be everywhere? The survivor let out a bitter laugh, the sound harsh and hollow. They are not like us. They don't need armies or fleets. They invade your thoughts. They twist your desires. You think you're in control of your life, but you're not. They've already begun. Alaris's face twisted with fear. That's why they're so dangerous. They don't just conquer with weapons or ships. They conquer with your mind. Ryan struggled to process what the man was saying. If the architects could invade minds, how could humanity possibly fight back? He looked at the survivor, hoping for some glimmer of hope, but all he saw was a man who had been consumed by the architect's influence, his spirit broken. What do we do now? Ryan asked, his voice desperate. The survivor's face twisted in pain, as though the very thought of what was to come hurt him. The architects don't just control your mind. They see everything. They are watching you. They always know what you're going to do next. Ryan shook his head. How is that possible? Through the machines, the survivor whispered. Through their technology. They implant themselves inside your very systems, into the heart of your ships, your networks, your weapons. There's no escape. The room grew colder, the air thick with tension. Ryan felt like he was suffocating under the weight of the truth. The architects weren't just a threat to the galaxy, they were already embedded in it, silently pulling the strings, waiting for the right moment to reveal their true power. And the key, the survivor continued, his voice cracking, is to destroy their connection to you. Cut them off from the inside. If you don't, they will consume you. Alaris stepped forward, her gaze intense. You were their first victim. You know how to stop them. The survivor closed his eyes, as if the very thought of confronting them again was too much to bear. The only way to stop them is to destroy the source. But you have to get close. And you can't trust anyone, because the architects are already inside your mind. They'll make you doubt everything. Ryan clenched his fists. Then we'll do it. We'll find this source, and we'll destroy it. But we need a plan. The survivor's eyes flickered with a final glimmer of something. Something like hope. The source is hidden in the heart of their empire, in the Vorton expanse. If you destroy it, they will lose their power. But be warned, Captain, if you fail, they will come for you. And they won't stop until they've erased humanity from existence. Ryan's mind raced. The Vorton expanse, the heart of the architect's empire. It was a place shrouded in mystery, a forbidden zone, and now he was being asked to venture there, to face an enemy that could control the very fabric of his thoughts. But he knew one thing: humanity was running out of time. They were at the brink of extinction, and the architects were the only thing standing in their way. Ryan turned to Alaris, his voice unwavering. Prepare the ship. We're going to the Vorton expanse, and we're going to end this. The journey to the Vorton expanse was unlike anything Ryan had ever experienced. The ship, barely holding together after their constant evasions and the physical toll of battling the architect's influence, moved slowly through the vast emptiness. But the weight of what lay ahead pressed down on him like a stone, heavier with every passing second. Alaris was silent for most of the trip, her eyes distant. Ryan knew she was thinking of the same thing. What lay ahead for them? The survivors' warnings were still fresh in his mind, but he couldn't let them consume him. They had no choice but to keep pushing forward. As they neared the expanse, the feeling of dread became palpable, suffocating. The vastness of the space around them seemed to close in, the stars dimming as though they were being swallowed whole. by the approaching darkness. Ryan knew it wasn't just the physical space that felt oppressive. It was the architects. They were watching. He could feel their gaze. "Captain," Alaris said, breaking the silence. "Do you understand what you're asking us to do? The expanse is a place of nothingness, a place where reality itself warps. If you destroy the source, we may not be able to return. We may never escape." Ryan's gaze never wavered. He could feel the weight of her words, but there was no turning back. "We don't have a choice. If we don't stop them now, there won't be a future for any of us. Not for you. Not for me. Not for humanity." Alaris looked at him, her eyes searching, as though trying to read his soul. She had her doubts. He could see it. But in the end, she nodded. "I trust you, Captain." It wasn't the reassurance he wanted, but it was enough. The final destination was upon them. The Vorton expanse appeared before them like an impenetrable void, a swirling mass of dark energy that seemed to defy logic. It wasn't a place of stars and nebulae. It was a rift in the universe itself, a place where the laws of physics were bent and broken, where time and space seemed irrelevant. Ryan's hands tightened on the controls. "Approaching coordinates," he said, his voice steady despite the turmoil inside him. "Ready yourself, Alaris. Once we enter this, we're in the heart of their empire. No going back." "I'm ready," she replied, her tone resolute, though her gaze betrayed the fear lurking underneath. The ship's sensors began to flicker, losing their connection with the outside world. It was like entering a black hole. One moment, they were on course. The next, they were drifting, lost in the void. The expanse was alive in a way that Ryan couldn't explain. It was an ancient, malevolent force that had been waiting for them. And then, as if on cue, the walls of the ship rattled, the alarms blaring as the interior lights flickered. The architects had found them. "They're here," Alaris whispered, her voice trembling. "They've already infiltrated the ship. They're in the system." Ryan slammed his hand on the console, attempting to regain control. But it was no use. The ship's systems were being overridden, and the eerie silence of the expanse only amplified the growing sense of hopelessness. He glanced at Alaris, who was already at the comms, trying to fight off the infiltration from within. "Hold on," Ryan growled, setting the course for the source. "We're not giving up." As they hurtled deeper into the expanse, Ryan felt the familiar presence of the architects creeping into his thoughts. Their influence was everywhere now, twisting his mind, making him second-guess his every move. He could feel their cold, alien intelligence invading his thoughts, trying to control him. "Fight it!" Alaris shouted, her voice cutting through the fog in his mind. "Don't let them in. Don't let them take you." The ship's hull groaned under the strain, as if the very fabric of reality was fighting against their intrusion. But Ryan clenched his jaw and focused, forcing his mind into a singular purpose. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they reached the source, a massive dark structure floating at the center of the expanse. It was both breathtaking and terrifying. The architect's true form was hidden within it, a machine unlike anything humanity had ever created. It was the heart of their power, a central node that connected them to every ship, every soldier, every piece of technology. Ryan set the ship down near the source, and without waiting, he grabbed his weapon. "This is it. We destroy this, and we destroy them. No more invasion, no more control. It all ends here." Alaris followed him, her steps unwavering. She was done with fear. She had seen the truth, felt the weight of the architect's power, and yet, here she was, fighting alongside him. As they neared the core of the source, the walls began to pulse, the familiar glyphs lighting up with a strange energy. The source was alive. It wasn't just a machine. It was a consciousness, and it was aware of their presence. The room shook as an overwhelming force assaulted them, trying to break their will, to crush their spirits. But Ryan pushed forward, driven by one thought: freedom. He reached the center of the room and activated the device that would sever the architect's control. The source screamed, a terrible, otherworldly sound that reverberated through the very fabric of space. For a moment, Ryan thought he had failed, that the expanse would consume them. But then, there was silence. The source flickered and collapsed into nothingness, and just like that, the architects were gone. The stars returned, the expanse settled, and the oppressive weight lifted. Ryan's breath came in ragged gasps as he looked at Alaris. "We did it," he whispered, though he didn't know if he truly believed it. Alaris nodded, her expression unreadable. "Yes, but the cost was high." Ryan looked out at the vast expanse of space. The battle had been won, but at what cost? The war was over, but the scars would remain. Humanity had survived, for now.